Shalom, everyone. This is Janice Baca, and hey, guys, it's great to have you here today. And so we're going to do a Q&A session, a live Q&A session. The questions about Revelation, or maybe you even have questions about Mount Sinai. And so, but I just want to first start off and say hello to everybody. I know that we have Tammy here. And guys, I know we're now broadcasting over there, streaming over on Project Truth Ministries channel. And so just so that you guys know, I am now producing a show on lambnetwork.tv. We have a lot of neat people here on Lamb Network, and it's exciting to meet all these wonderful people. And I encourage you to go watch their programs and hear what they have to say, because they have a lot of great information, and I want you to meet them and love them like I do. And so let's see, who else do we have here? We have Jeff Brannon. We have The Way Remnant. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us. And you guys, it's exciting to have everyone on here today. But hey, I want to start off with a few announcements. Somebody on eBay is attempting to sell the Scroll of Mysteries, Coach in Hebrew Revelation, for $120. You guys, that is not me. We are not making any money off the Scroll of Mysteries, and nor do I desire anyone else to purchase a book and sell it for double, triple the amounts of what they purchased it for. So we offer that for free as a free download on projecttruthministries.org website. And of course, if you do want to buy the book, it is at Amazon.com, and that's going to be the cheapest price you get, because it's priced as low as it could possibly be. So that's going to be something you need to watch out for. Don't be scammed by these people. But hey, I'm going to bring my dear friend and family member. This is my dear friend, Brian Williams from Project Truth Ministries. Hello, Brian. It is great to see you.
It's so great to be here. And you know what? I can't think of two more powerful things than Mount Sinai and Hebrew Revelation from Coach in India. I mean, talk about power.
It is so exciting, because this, you guys, here's something that keep in mind, that someone who has the passion for something will go deeper into the research and looking for the information more so than someone who has the credentials after their name. So they're going to have more information as to what you need, and they're the people I think you need to pay attention to. They'll do the research. What do you think about that, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. And also ask yourself, can God use anybody? He absolutely can. And he's calling everybody. And so, some of these people in the academic world, well, they're not listening. They're not listening to God. But,
and that's unfortunate.
We picked up the torch. We got that call from God, like the Blues Brothers say. I keep saying, we're on a mission from God. And, it's been a long journey, Janice. We have put in a lot of hours.
We have, and that's the whole point, because I myself work, 60 hours, if not more sometimes, because I don't usually count my hours. But for somebody to try to make money off of something that we don't even make money off of, it's like, no, that was the whole point, is that we give this away because it belongs to the people of God to do their studies and research and compare it to their other notes. And so this is not something I want someone to make money off of it.
Yeah. And nor did we want to hold it back. I mean, there's a lot of people that will translate and try to piece things together and kind of craft their own compilation. No, we wanted to put out an accurate translation with the interlinear, all the details, footnotes, and everything, just for the people to get it in their hands, for free. Here you go. This is God's work. We're just the vessel passing it along.
That's right. That's right. We've got here M. Warner Ministries. Welcome. Thank you for joining. We've got also The Way Remnant. These are our friends, Jeff Miranda, and they are joining us today. This is, you guys, we love Jeff Miranda Brannon at The Way Remnant. And I'm going to be quoting some information from him shortly. So I just encourage you guys to also follow them on their YouTube channel at The Way Remnant. And
go subscribe. He's got a great show.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know what, though, Brian? We really need to mention that. How can the people get involved in
Mhm.
our this whole team thing? We need them. What
Right.
is their part in this?
Absolutely. Everybody, you can be a part of this truth movement. You can be a part of this movement to expose the academic world for ignoring manuscripts or not translating or taking a stance that you know that is not true. Like the New Testament was originally written in Greek. There's so much evidence. It's just immense
It is.
evidence. The Greek just screams out, this is not original Greek. Uh,
Absolutely.
get involved, the listener. You can share our work out. You can share our
Right.
links to your friends and families and other people. You can send them to people to stir them up and get them fired up and angry. Hey, that's not right. I don't agree with that. Whatever. You can stir up some people. You can download our free translations.
That's right.
Um, we have all of Coaching in Revelation. We
That's right.
have chapter by chapter in Matthew,
That's right.
and we're about to release, I think,
We
19.
we are about to release chapter 19. Now, the
Mhm,
chapter 19 of Matthew has been completed, you guys,
mhm.
but it has to go through a rigorous double, triple
Study.
check, okay?
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
this has some very tender information that we
Mhm.
really must be careful about how we're translating. So we're being super careful about this and
Yep.
for the next coming chapters.
Yep.
So that's why there's a bit of a delay on that.
Mhm.
But you know what, guys? You can also write reviews for the books
Yep.
so that this information gets out to the people. This is my latest book, Discover the 144,000 and Their Song. Good information in that, as well as the power of God singing in the Hebrew New Testament.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the demons, devils, deities, and the four witnesses. Writing reviews actually gets it cycling out. What is that word I'm looking for, Brian? It gets
More
them to
views, more
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 views.
exposure. Yeah.
More exposure. And so we want to share this information through either your social media accounts, comments, likes, subscribes, like we said earlier. This is extremely important, and this is where we need you
Mhm.
because a lot of people don't know about the Cochin manuscript. And it's extremely important that you know the details of it. We want to teach you about the Cochin Hebrew New Testament manuscript.
Mhm.
And so this is where Brian and I we will we're this isn't going to be the only Q&A session, guys. So we're just going to begin this session and we'll have some more coming up because there's a lot of questions regarding all of
Mhm.
this. And so, Brian, is there anything else
Yeah.
that you need to add on that?
Oh, yes. Another way you can help, again, we work for free. God has sent us on this journey.
Yeah.
It's burning in our bones to do this work. But, if you feel led, praise God and bless you. If you feel led to donate, you can go to projecttruthministries.org and you can go to the donate section and give whatever you want. You want to give $1? That's fine. I'll be happy with $1. So,
Right.
yeah,
And
it
that's
goes
the
to our cause and our work in
It
paying for
surely
manuscripts.
does.
Yeah.
It surely does because it does have bills to pay. But and the other thing is if you don't have anything, you know what? We really believe in the power of prayer. We're
Yes.
very serious about the power of prayer. Add us to your prayer list. It has been an interesting journey, and we've been through quite a bit. And so this is what we desire to do is put this information out for you. So, hey, Brian, you know what? I want to start off with. I want to show something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, here's one of the biggest confusions that I think that someone is putting out information that is incorrect. And that's the reason why I want to show you something. And so I want to show you this is what I call the Cochin manuscript. This is what it looks like. Okay. This is the first chapter of the scroll of mystery Hasadot. This is Revelation. That's what it looks like. If somebody is putting up something of a manuscript that does not look similar to this and says it's the Cochin manuscripts, that is incorrect. This is what you should be looking at for the Scroll of Mysteries for the Cochin Revelation. This is the type of handwriting. So let me take that one off and let me show you the other one. The other one is the Manchester Gaster
Mhm.
1616. That is a copy of the Cochin manuscript, right?
Mhm.
But it's
And it's
not a
it's
good copy.
right, it's not a like for like copy, it's a copy, like, qualitative, it's close, but there's
Yep,
been a lot of modifications, a lot of changes. You can tell like
absolutely.
they had a Greek manuscript next to it. And they're like, you know what, I'm gonna go with the Greek on this one, blah, 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 blah. And so,
Absolutely.
this was actually one of them that I started working on first with the Institute. It was the Gaster collection.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, it's very eye-catching, but once you start to compare it out, you're like, oh yeah, this is not an exact copy, not even
No.
close.
You know what they did, Brian? This copyist actually removed almost every single name of Jehovah and
Mm,
replaced it with something else, either Hashem or something else. That's a bad thing because we're talking
mhm,
about Revelation, right? Where in chapter 22 it says, "Do not add to it, take away from this words of this prophecy."
mhm.
My goodness, this is a scary thing of what someone is doing.
I don't want to
So
be, again, that book, it says you can't take or add to, and to take out of all the things out of there. God's holy
yeah,
name. I don't want to be standing next to that guy on Judgment Day. Like, why did you remove my name?
I know, and
Whoa.
then they did terrible damage
Mhm.
to it. I consider the Manchester Gaster 1616 a corrupted copy. I personally will not use it. I personally will not refer to it other than this to demonstrate that it's a bad copy. Okay, it's not even a very good copy. If we didn't have the
Mhm.
Cochin manuscript, we would be in a well, we would be in a mess, honestly. We'd be in a mess if all we had to rely on was a Manchester Gaster 1616, and that's
Yeah.
extremely unfortunate.
And that would leave some of our textual problems that we find in the Greek unsolved, which
Right,
we were able to solve a lot of these in the Cochin
right.
collection of Revelation. I mean, there was some amazing findings that is only scholars probably theorized half of the textual problems that we found. The
Yes,
rest, they were unknown to academics and text criticism.
yes,
Yeah, but we found them, and they're
yes.
obvious.
So, you guys, just so that you know, now I'm getting a lot of questions here
Yeah,
in
we got some
this
questions
you got a
flowing.
lot of them, right? So just so that you guys know, I want you to be equipped so that you can do
Yeah.
your own research, right? Now, I know this book is a difficult read, but this is a Juan Morcoca's grammatic basic grammar biblical Hebrew grammar book, right? And so it is a difficult read, but it is where to begin to get some of your answers on the late Second Temple Hebrew. So let me start off with my usual spiel. Hebrew is not Hebrews, okay? Hebrew is Hebrews, meaning there's ancient or archaic Hebrew, there's First Temple Hebrew, and honesty, Brian, we should really call that the pre-exilic Hebrew. Um, but I digress.
Mhm.
But then there's a Second Temple Hebrew,
Yep.
late Second Temple Hebrew, and modern Hebrew. We should not be translating a late Second Temple document from modern Hebrew
No, you'll
perspective.
mess up a lot.
Exactly. And so one of the things that one of my instructors, actually, I think a couple of them have said this, but they say do not take modern Hebrew until you have taken biblical Hebrew, because then you check out on some of the things you would be missing. The whole thing is you take the each word and you structure it. This is an adjective. This is this kind of verb, and so forth, and you structure it. And you must do an analysis of each and every one. Every structure of every word has meaning. Right, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. And even those words that you'll find in modern Hebrew, they might actually mean some very different things in biblical Hebrew.
Right,
They've done a lot of switching and involving, and some of them are not even close. They'll
right.
they'll mess you up when you translate.
Absolutely. And that is the reason why I have not personally taken modern Hebrew yet until biblical Hebrew is tough, especially when you're learning the First Temple Hebrew and the weak verbs and weak nouns and so forth. It gets to be so complex. And then every time you come into, say, Isaiah, it's a difficult translation. He's so crafty with his work that it's extremely difficult as it is to translate. But then to try to translate it through modern Hebrew is a
Mhm.
terrible terrible thing to do. I think it would do destruction to the translation, all honesty.
Yeah.
And so,
And it's funny because a lot of people will be like, "I'm studying modern Hebrew because I'm going to go to Israel." Well, in Israel, not everybody has taken English, so they do speak English. So it's like,
yeah.
well, you probably should just learn biblical Hebrew then.
Yeah, so I have this question here
Yeah,
that
let's
is
get
modern
to some
Hebrew
questions.
different? It absolutely
Oh
is
yeah,
different.
yeah.
Now, you're going to have some of the words that remain the same, but you have to look at the context of that day and that
Mhm.
time. And you have to look at what changes may have happened. Things happen differently in the different genres,
Yeah.
especially when you get into poetry.
Mhm.
And so I just say that this is extremely important that you know the grammar. The grammar is extremely important. Um, but I do want to start off with something that's been burning on a lot of people's mind about the Cochin manuscript, and that is the names, right?
Mhm.
People has been
Yeah,
struggling with the names.
yeah.
We've got some names that some say, well, it sounded like a little bit of a Spanish. Well, it's actually probably a Portuguese language, but we're getting first to the Yeshu.
Mm.
So there's been a lot of bashing about the name of Yeshu instead of Yeshua being in this manuscript. And so there is a person who is a pastor, a researcher,
Mhm.
and an author, and he did exceptional research on this information, and that's Jeff Brannon.
Hi,
And
Jeff.
so
Big heart
we
for
love you,
you.
Jeff.
Big heart for you.
So
I love this quote you're gonna read, Janice. I already know it was
yeah,
coming.
so I'm going to read what he wrote, and he gave me permission to share this information.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so here goes. This is Jeff responding to someone's answer or question about the name of Yeshu. So
Mhm.
I copied that and I kept it. And so I treasured that because it was so well done that I think that is something that we can share with others. All right. So he says one common criticism raised against the Cochin manuscripts is the presence of the name of Yeshu rather than Yeshua in reference to the Messiah. The prevailing assumption is that Yeshu is a derogatory term formed used in the Talmud, which is an acronym for Yamech Shamo Veskro. May this usage may the name memory be blotted out, and it's used by rabbinic opponents of the early believers. While this usage certainly took root in the 2nd century CE and became widespread in the post-temple polemical literature, it is historically inaccurate to claim that all uses of Yeshu were projective from the outset. Thanks to the work of scholars such as David Flosser and Joachim Jeremias and Eliyahu Tal, we now understand that the form Yeshu likely reflects Galilean dialectical pronunciation from the 1st century CE. In certain northern Aramaic speaking regions, especially in Galilee, where many of Yeshua's early disciples lived, the final letter ayin was often dropped in common speech. Jeremiah has noted this was a phonetic phenomenon, a feature of spoken Aramaic rather than an intentional alteration of the name. David Flausser similarly observed that Yeshu could be shortened or dialectically variant used by locals, especially among the common and uneducated, rather than a theological statement. In fact, some early Hebrew and Aramaic manuscripts, including the Toledot Yeshu tradition in its earliest forms, used Yeshu without apparent hostility, suggesting the term existed in circulation before the rabbinic acronyms imbued it with negative connotations. Furthermore, Tal Alian, in her Lexicon of Jewish Names in Late Antiquity, points out that several Jewish names underwent similar dialectical variations across regions and time periods, indicating this phenomenon was not unique to Yeshua's name. In light of this evidence, the presence of Yeshu in the Cochin manuscript is better understood not as a sign of rabbinic tampering or disrespect, but rather as a reflection of vernacular pronunciation and spelling in the 1st century Jewish communities, especially among the Galileans. It predates the derogatory Talmudic usage and aligns with the cultural, linguistic background of Yeshua's earliest followers.
Mhm.
Yay! Thank you,
Yeah.
Jeff,
Thank you
for
so
doing that research.
much.
That was absolutely beautiful. And so wonderful.
I
Go
want I
ahead.
wanna add on to, let's let's just keep adding to the tsunami of information that Jeff put with us. So there's also a lot of manuscripts out there that say Yeshu, and they're using it in such a way that it doesn't look like it's a curse or anything that's terrible.
Right.
We have a lot of New Testament Hebrew manuscripts that also use the name that
Yes.
has been identified. I think we're well over 85 manuscripts that have been found around the world. This New
Yes.
Testament Hebrew. Um, Also, people today still are named Yehoshua, and they
That's
would
right.
use a shortened form of the name.
Right.
And it makes sense. If you study Hebrew, biblical Hebrew especially, you can
Mhm.
see that there are certain grammatical rules on why you drop letters and use words, or don't include letters for certain reasons because of the way you breathe, the way you're trying to pronounce words, and the way you're crafting. You can't do this because it's supposed to be no air when you do this word and all that stuff. So there's all kinds of little things like that, and it makes sense that you would drop the ayin at the end if you understood the Galilean way of pronouncing the
Absolutely.
ayin, because in Jerusalem, Judea, the southern part, they did not pronounce the ayin the proper way. They
Mm.
pronounced it just as an a sound.
There you
But
go.
in the Galilee section, they pronounced it correctly and they used the upward nasal Yeshua. And so that's why when the disciples are in Jerusalem and people are like, "Hey, look, there's some Galileans." How did they know that they were Galileans? Because of the way they're talking. They
Yeah.
give themselves away. And
Yeah.
so, to have that upward nasal up sound, uh, that's a lot of work. And it makes sense that they would drop it,
Well,
having it at the
I
end.
agree, and I think you're on target with that. And so this has been a huge concern of a lot of people that the full name of Yeshua. Now, I do want to say something about this. We know what Yeshua's name was.
Mm,
We know his name is Yeshua. It is a shortened form of Yehoshua. Okay. And twice in the Tanakh, you'll see an extra vav, which we call as a mater lectionis, which is a Latin word that it means reading mother. And that's where you can get that O sound. Okay. So um, there's different variations of Yeshua, Yahoshu, Yehusha. I don't know. They're coming up with different
yeah,
variations, and that is not the
it's
correct pronunciation. We know what his name was.
yeah, and it's not grammatically Hebrew or any of that. They're breaking all these rules, coming up with new ways. Nobody's ever banned the name Yeshua or Yehoshua. That's still being used today. So like we shouldn't be arguing and fighting over how to pronounce his name.
All right.
God's name, they did ban it. So I understand why people
The
might
way they
have issues, but
debate,
there's no issues with the Messiah's name at all.
right?
Yeah.
So so that we are going to run on to the next one. It's the names, right,
Mhm.
Brian? So we got these like Spanish like flair names
Yeah.
that's in the Coaching manuscripts. I heard someone say, well, then no, it's a corrupted manuscript, and it is
Mhm.
not. So in the 1600s, there was a gentleman, Alameda. He did a Portuguese translation of the New Testament. And what's his name? Joseph Gebhard Klein. I think he's a PhD now. His theory is that this manuscript maybe have been has been influenced by this Almeida gentleman, or perhaps it actually went through Portugal at one time, and another scholar says that this was a teaching manuscript. Now, if you guys have seen that our team at Project Truth Ministries, that when we put a name up, that we will transliterate it the way it is spelled out in Hebrew, and then afterwards we'll put in brackets Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, or whatever, because it's the names we're used to. What
Yeah.
they did was no different, except that they then put it in the Portuguese language. Okay,
Mhm.
so this does not corrupt anything of the manuscript. And like I said, we know what late Second Temple Hebrew looks like. Okay, because we've got this is only at one of the several books that they refer to in the Israel Institute of Biblical Studies. Okay, and there are like four, I think it is. But we know what the late Second Temple biblical Hebrew looked like, and that is, one of the manuscripts was found in the Qumran caves, which was the Greater Isaiah scroll. And if you look at the Isaiah scroll and you compare it to the one in the Qumran caves, you can actually see the spelling differences, right? And so those are some of the things that we look at: is the spelling, the use of Mishnaic words. So late Second Temple Hebrew, guys, it's called New Hebrew. It's also called Rabbinic Hebrew. Now, a subset of the Rabbinic Hebrew actually exists in the Mishnah, and that's what we call the Mishnaic Hebrew. All right. And so that Mishnah is a Jewish book that was written about 100 CE. And so we know that represents the language of that day. And so now we see the Rabbinic Hebrew represented there in the Mishnah, Mishnaic Hebrew. So hopefully, guys, that makes sense. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's some of the stuff that we look for, the markers, evidence of first century words and things that give itself away. And boy, do we find a lot of them.
Yeah.
Some of them were things that stopped being in use in 90 AD.
Yeah.
So those are things that really tell a lot about the manuscript itself. I think we're getting some questions over here. Do we
Yeah,
want to
we're getting tons
go
of them.
ahead?
Look at this one that Jeff wrote. He says the Galileans were basically the rednecks of Israel. They had a very recognizable accent, and that's right. I think it's funny, and I love it. But thank you. Yeah. So let me go back. Do you have one on your side that you have
Well,
questions?
somebody asked about what is the Cochin revelation, and
That's a good question.
what is the Cochin revelation? I'll just say it's a collection from India,
Mhm.
Cochin, India, to be specific. The state of Travancore. Sometimes people will call it the Travancore collection or the Cambridge collection. In Cambridge, because that
It's in
collection of
that library.
manuscripts traveled to the UK and is in the Cambridge University. So there's a lot of different ways of describing this collection. We call it the Cochin collection because it comes from Cochin, India. But there was a guy named Claudius Buchanan who went over there, was hunting them down, wanted copies for himself, and he hired some rabbis thought to be in possession of it. Is a guy named Rahabi, and he made a copy. And Janice, I was thinking maybe Claudius Buchanan has a tie-in with Portugal, and maybe he wanted names being standardized to his liking.
And
It's just a
that may
possibility.
be. That may be, and I didn't think about that. I really wish that we had, the one that the Cochin was copied from. I really do. But if anything, if we could at least get another manuscript that has the same Hebrew markers, the Mishnaic Hebrew with Aramaisms. And guys, when I say Aramaisms, that means it's Hebrew words with maybe a prefix of Aramaic prefix or an Aramaic suffix, and it may be an Aramaic phrase that's mixed in with the Hebrew. That's two languages that's being smashed together. I kind of wish we had a second manuscript that we can compare this to, but we don't at this time. So we'll just have to pray it through and ask the Father to reveal that to us.
Absolutely. And to go further, because the question was specifically about Revelation. Well, there are other manuscripts of Revelation, and the ones that have more proof or better markers are not many. It's like 2 pages or like to chapter 2. This collection, this one from Cochin, India, is a full book of Revelation. And in fact, it has so much in it that screams original Hebrew.
It
It
does.
actually solves a lot of the textual problems that we have in the Greek. And some of these are very unique and very amazing. Janice, can I just read through a couple
Please go
that
ahead.
all right, okay, so these are like big things that I know history, so I know I should be seeing this not in this manuscript. So these are some of them, because you know how the Greek works. So, and the history of the Christians and how they modify things. So we know the Lord's Day is something that is an addition. Well, the Cochin manuscript, Book of Revelation, does not have Lord's Day. It says John was in the Spirit. That's it. Doesn't say he
That's
was on the
it.
Lord's Day. And so that's something that we already was like, that shouldn't be there. Oh, look, it's not there. Okay, great. Another one is the Alpha and Omega. It says, I'm the beginning, the end, the first and the last, the Alpha and Omega. Well, do we think John was writing this in Hebrew and then he penned Alpha and Omega? That doesn't make sense.
No, I didn't. No, of course not.
It actually even in the Greek, it gives itself away because it's being redundant to say the first and the last, the beginning and the end is the same thing as saying Alpha and Omega. So it's redundancy so that the Greek reader knows what it's talking about.
Right. But
And
see, also understand that's the one where he's quoting the 3 verses in Isaiah saying,
back
I'm
in
the
19,
first and the last, I'm the beginning and the end.
right.
Okay. This is a quote out of Isaiah.
Right. And we don't see any letters like Aleph, Tav, and Isaiah. And if we went into this thinking, okay, the Kochin is a translation from Greek over into Hebrew, then we should see someone saying, well, why don't I put Aleph, Tav here? And lo and behold, they didn't do that
They didn't do
because
that.
it wasn't in the
It wasn't in
manuscript.
this manuscript. Correct.
Correct. And so that proves this is coming from a Hebrew source that matches
Yes.
Isaiah.
So, and we went through all 22 chapters, Brian.
Yep.
We went verse by verse, you and I, over a year and a half,
Yep.
I guess, close to that. And we proved over and over, this is not a translation from the Greek manuscript, period. It is entirely different. We also proved that Murdoch and what's the other one? Crawford. Both of those are translations from the Greek.
They gave themselves away.
They
like,
gave themselves
obvious
away.
to the max. Like anybody wants to argue, oh, these Aramaic versions are are true originals, untouched by the Greek. Well, they are identical to the Greek, and any differences that we found in the Kochin, well, the Aramaic ones and the Greek ones were all united, and then ours was the one that solved the problem and was
So,
different.
Brian, I think you're going to love this question because
Yeah.
we absolutely love Dr. Blizzard.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he just passed this year, but last year.
Yeah.
So, go ahead. You want to talk about Dr. Blizzard a little bit?
Yeah, Dr. Blizzard, amazing scholarly work. Guy was he studied at the Hebrew University in Israel, and he became like legendary for his text criticism. He wasn't like Emmanuel Tove, but he did a lot of amazing discoveries. He even did archaeology. He was responsible for uncovering the southern steps and the baptismal pools right there at the southern steps of the Temple Mount. So that's amazing. Gives me chills when I think about that.
Right.
But the guy's a legend, and he's a legend for analyzing Hebrew and also writing and talking about the New Testament. And one of the books is that we recommend like crazy. He wrote this back in I think it was 1980. So this is a long time ago. He was talking about if you translate the Greek in New Testament back into Hebrew, you have all these idioms and all this information that just explodes, proving that this thing was originally in Hebrew and then transferred into Greek. And so you lose the quality there. And he gives a lot of examples of how that the New Testament manuscripts are originally written in Hebrew. And he gives a lot of markers. And he said, listen, in the future, people need to go into these libraries and they need to search. They need to dig for more manuscripts out there because the evidence is overwhelming that they some of them has to have survived. The Spanish Inquisition, they were running around burning manuscripts that were Hebrew, that were New Testament stuff. They were hunting down Messianics for trying to be on one side or the other, Jewish and following the Messiah. So and then the Spanish Inquisition kind of shifted and went around.
Right.
And so these manuscripts were all getting burned left and right, which is why a lot of them are hidden inside of other stories, other books. And Vatican has them just kind of laying in junk boxes and stuff. And people don't know where they're at, but they're being discovered as we digitize things. People are finding them. And that's kind of a fulfillment of what Blizzard pointed out long time ago. Like, we need to find these things. It's going to happen. and praise God, we have found some, and there's more
Amen.
being discovered, and those need to be translated, and those need to be put out and made public. So Roy
Amen.
Blizzard is a legend, and
Yes, we
my
recommend his
heart goes
book.
out to his family for his loss, and
Absolutely,
rest in
because
peace.
his was one of the first books that I read when I was working on. I was working on my master's. I'd actually started off, believe it or not, like who knows, 15 years ago. I was working on my master's, and I started off at Oral Roberts University, and that was one of the first books that I read was Dr. Blizzard's book, that first book. And so it's we do recommend it, and we love him. He's a legend. It's unfortunate that he's gone. I'm looking for the oh, here it is. Jeff Brannon has this question. Where do critics overstate their case against the Cochin revelation in your view? I think that so here's the problem. The first thing I thought of, they just, because it's poor grammar. Now it's Acts 4:13 that we need to consider. Acts 4:13, where Peter and John were uneducated, unlearned men. And so
And that makes sense because they were fishermen. They
they were
would have
fishermen.
at least learned to read, and then that's about it. Hey, I need to be on a boat.
Absolutely. This manuscript has poor grammar, poor spelling. It's most unusual, a lot of errors, and so it makes it even more difficult to do the translation and go through it carefully, especially when you're finding these usages of words that there's a variation from the standard spelling of this word. And so I think that was the first thing that they tossed out was the poor grammar and the spelling errors. And then I think a lot of times they forget about the extra yods, the yods at the end of the words, where there's some extra yods at the end of the words. That's actually a late Second Temple marker that a lot of them have just forgotten. I think they just forgot. And then we have what's called the Aleph Tav is a direct object marker. It's a pointer to the direct object. In other words, if I say I'm going to a house, I wouldn't need the Aleph Tav to say any particular house. This could be any house. But if I say I'm going to that house, the house, then I would use the Aleph Tav as a direct object marker. Now that's First Temple. However, when you start getting into late Second Temple Hebrew, that Aleph Tav starts dropping off, and then the Lamed starts getting to be used as a direct object marker. And so then I think a lot of that, in fact, I watched, one of those, I read through one of the scholars' papers, he completely forgot about the Lamed direct object marker because that is used more frequently in late Second Temple Hebrew. And so they ignored a lot. They know there's Mishnaic Hebrew words. There's the Hebrew, there's Bacol's Mishnaic and so forth. There are phrases that are Mishnaic. And so we see that. And we have the history. The first thing you need to have is the history of the manuscript. And we do. We know that it was discovered in Cochin, India, right? And we know that that was a major trade route during the first century, and that there was Thomas and possibly even Andrew traveled to Cochin, India, and then a copy of all the writings ended up in Cochin, India, in the Malabari Black Jews synagogue, right? And that's where it stayed. So we know we got a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. No, this is not like absolutely written first century, but it's many generations of copies. But it's been so well preserved as far as the copyists have done so well to not, as far as I'm concerned, not really corrupted, other than the names has been an issue, the Portuguese names. Other than that, they've done extremely well in copying it so many generations down the line. And so this is what we're looking for. I don't want something that has been translated 3 or 4 times. Me personally, I want something that's been untranslated. And here's an example. In Matthew, you'll see in some of the manuscripts, and Brian, I know you're going to jump in on this one. Some of the manuscripts, it says Yeshua was named Yeshua because he's Yoshia. He'll come to save. But this one, the Cochin doesn't say that. It says because he's Goel. Goel is a redeemer. And many times people translate Goel as savior. which if you want the literal translation, it is redeemer. It's an active participle that you would translate as a redeemer. We need a redeemer. We need a redeemer. We need the blood of Yeshua to replace our blood because we are sinners and we're saved by grace because he gave his life for us. So we need the redeemer. And Jehovah says he's coming as a redeemer. So now we have the Messiah coming as a redeemer, and he's Yeshua because he is Goel. Now, Joseph Gebhardt Klein did translate that in his copy and said Savior. So that right there is prime example that if we get that translated from somebody else, then if I go translating it again, then I go with Savior. I wouldn't translate it to Goel because now you got the Savior. So when you've lost when you lose it in the translation, you lose the key components of the findings and the Hebrew markers we're looking for. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and that's another thing that tells us this thing stayed in the same language. Because when you start changing from one language to the next, you absolutely lose meaning, you lose clarity,
Yes.
you lose, and in fact the sentences get longer. And that's
Yes.
something that we see when we compared the Greek to the Cochin. The
Yes.
sentences are shorter. You don't take away part of your sentence when you're switching into languages. You're adding more information because it's hard to take something from Hebrew and put it into like one of these Latin-based languages, or some Greek or whatnot. You have to create words. You have to put in words. You have to add more detail because now you have to deliver it to your readers for whatever time period that they're living in. They have to be able to understand, and that's why the sentences get bigger. They get more detail, more information, and that's actually something that we saw quite often in the Book of Revelation in our series. If you go and watch our videos, we point out those perceived additions. Like, look at the Greek; it's so wordy. It's adding this extra information that's redundant or not needed at all. And sometimes it's almost contradictory in a few places, but
Yeah, and so somebody's asking a
yeah.
question. I am monitoring the
Yeah.
chat, you guys. I'm just sorry
Yeah.
that we're getting so many
Let's
questions
get
all
the
at
questions
once, and
going.
so we're doing what we can to stay on
Yeah.
top of it. But don't worry,
Okay.
guys. If you haven't gotten your question answered, we are going to have this again, another Q&A session in a couple of weeks. So don't fret. It's going to be. We will try to do what we can to get to all of your questions. So. All right. Do you have one over there, Brian, that you want to
I
address?
see one here. This is from John Coxto Aston K91. Okay. Which Matthew passage do you think
Ah.
is most often misread because it is detached from the Jewish context? I'll say, well, we're supposed to talk about Revelation and Mount Sinai, but we'll kind of touch a little bit. So to give you some idea of the Hebrew Matthew, there are a lot of places in there that uphold Torah. And you can see it in the Revelation too, that mainstream Christianity, they're like, oh, law's done away with, and the Greek is very ambiguous in a lot of places, and you can kind of wiggle your way into that mindset. But the Hebrew is very clear. It's very, very stern, very blunt with that. No, the law is still good. You're supposed to be following the commandments. We can see that in the Revelation. In the Matthew 5:17, think not that I've come to do away with the law or the prophets. I did not come to do away with. And it goes on to say, in the Greek, it says, until heaven and earth pass away. And so you're like, okay, well then it does have an ending, right? Because heaven and earth passes away. Maybe the law is like thrown to the side. But to be honest, that doesn't make sense, because if the law is love your God and love your neighbor, and that encompasses everything in the law, then is law going to be done away with when there's new heavens and new earth? So I always thought, that's a little strange, but hey, I can't change the text. But what we see in the Cochin, it says, although heaven and earth pass away, the law doesn't is not going to end. It will be established. And
That's right.
so, and that's not a direct quote, because I don't have it up in front of me. I'm working off memory, but it says, although heaven and earth pass away, the law is still going. And so That's beautiful. I mean,
Well, it is
I
beautiful.
don't understand how the law should go away, right? Because this is
No, and it
something that
shouldn't,
God has
but
determined.
think about it, Brian. Go back to the Torah, the Tanakh, and then it says, like the feast days. Those are his feast days, and they're
Mhm.
eternal. And even as long as your generation exists, you'll be wearing the tzitzit. And yes, ladies, it does include you, because you are Bnei Israel. You are part of the children of Israel. So the tzitzit, the four corners on your garments that you should be wearing, the little fringes with the thread of blue. I do have mine on. Couldn't lift it up and little. It's too short. So, nevertheless, I'm just saying this is eternal. This is something we continue to do, to follow through, and the generations of the children of Israel just never goes away. We are going to be eternally the children of Israel. So, I agree that possibly that there's some other, I don't know, meaning to that, but I don't think it ever goes away because it goes against the Torah. Because the feast days we know we're keeping, and in the end of days we know we're doing Sukkot. And if you don't go to Jerusalem for Sukkot, you're not going to get the rain. And
Not gonna be good for you.
so
Yeah.
can't argue that one. So
Mm.
let's see. Do we have another one, Brian? What about
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I see Josie under grace says, so the coach in Revelation says 144,000 in Revelation 7 and 14. Are the two different groups or the same?
They are the same group, and I love the teaching about the 144,000. It's my passion. It is the same group. Not only is it the same group, that this is where it solved a problem. Now,
Mhm.
there was always the theory that possibly Ezekiel chapter 9 was also the sealing of the 144,000. And that people threw that out, and it's, yeah, okay. But now we have a phrase. This is where the Cochin Hebrew, the Scroll of Mysteries, Cochin Hebrew Revelation came into play and was essential. One of the many places it did. The Tav al Mitzvot is a key phrase that quotes Ezekiel chapter 9. Tav al Mitzvot, a tav, the mark or the signature, the sign upon the forehead. That is the exact phrase that is in Ezekiel chapter 9 for those that were sealed and has not yet occurred. Okay, so what I'm saying is that's a reference for a future day, and the Tav al Mitzvot. Now, we've talked about this before. The Tav has a lot of meanings that come with it. Yes, it's going to be the name of our God on our forehead, the people's forehead. I say, I don't know. It's not me. It's like I'm saying the 144,000, whoever you guys are, you're going to have the Tav, the name of God
Yeah.
on your forehead, right? And that it may possibly come with more than just the name of God. It may actually come with either the frequency, the music. And so that's in my
The
book,
ability to sing, the ability
the
to sing,
ability to
right,
sing.
yeah, I mean, we talked about David, right? He was a warrior singer, a
Absolutely.
musician, so, like, that's kinda what runs through my mind too. These people are gonna be, like,
They're going to be some serious
powerful.
singers, right?
Yeah.
And I'm convinced, now
Mm.
this is a theory. I'm convinced that the first song will be the last song. And the first song is a song of the sea. And it will be the last song because Yeshua, Yeshua, he's the first and the last, the beginning and the end. We just talked about that earlier, that the first song will be the last song and that the ending is brought out of the beginning. And so this is the reason why I believe that the song of the sea will be the song that they sing, and we don't have all of the song. So
Yeah.
some of those verses were discovered in the Qumran caves, and they're still missing entire sections of those verses.
And
Big deal.
that's why it's gonna be God putting it in them, right?
Yeah.
But Janice, you also pointed out, that there's a connection to the Tanakh, and that's actually something that we saw a lot when we were analyzing our Hebrew Revelation from Coach in India. Is, oh my goodness, there are so many pair ups and matches to the
Yes.
Old Testament that are not present in the Greek. One of those being in Zechariah chapter 1, verse 7 through 11,
Yes.
and Zechariah chapter 6,
The four
1 through 8
horses.
was the 4 horses.
Yeah, that one was a big one, Brian.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, like, beside myself. I'm like, "What? Look at this." So, in the Greek, people, there are 4 horses listed, 3 of those horses match what is
Yes.
found in Zechariah, but
Yes.
the Cochin matches it, and it's the exact same word.
So
It's the
this is
same word.
this is huge, Brian. What I need to stress at this point, no, we have a number of Hebrew manuscripts, and I'm talking about Hebrew manuscripts.
Mhm,
None of them match this at all.
mhm.
None of them connect like this to the Tanakh, what
Yeah.
some call the Old Testament. None of them match like this. This
Mhm.
is the only one that matches like this. That's word for word. That's quoting
Yeah,
phrases, and that's exactly what we're looking for.
yeah.
And
We
so
we
huge.
found a bunch of those where
Yes.
their exact word matches, and they're pointing to that actual verse,
Yes.
and one of them was, boils. You had
Oh, the
boils. People
boils. I remember
broke out in
that.
boils, and it's straight from Exodus, the exact same Hebrew word. I'm like, "Look at this. This is amazing." You know,
It
I get so excited be
I know.
you know, Janice, you saw me counting this earlier before we
I
went
did.
on. I made a list, people. I analyzed the Cochin Revelation. I was like, "Hey, I need to know how many references are pointing from Revelation back to the Exodus story with
Yes.
Moses and Egypt and the plagues and, you know, getting out of there and coming to Mount Sinai." And I counted 45.
Yeah,
45 people
45. That's right.
references in the Cochin Hebrew Revelation
Yes.
pointing back to just the Exodus story. How
Yes.
amazing is that?
That is amazing. That is amazing. Hey, I have Victor's in the house. Hello,
Hey,
Victor.
Victor, he's part of
Okay,
our
he wants
team.
us to explain the
Yeah.
specifics of how we do the translating process.
Okay.
Guys, this is a very tedious process. When I told you earlier is that we take the words and we structure them according to the grammar. We're trying to produce what the author himself or herself, whatever, has said at that time according to what they would have said. If they're sitting in front of us, we want to hear those words, right?
Mhm.
And so sometimes it's a messy English, but it's a great Hebrew sometimes. But in
Yeah.
this case, Revelation has a messy Hebrew.
Mhm.
So at times is a messy Hebrew, but we structure it according to the grammar. And it's not so clear because we
Mhm.
don't know how they sounded words, which
Yeah.
would make a difference between is it an adjective versus a verb, or I'm sorry, a construct chain or something like that. That makes a difference. So then we look at context as king.
Yeah.
And so then we have to go through this rigmarole of getting somebody else to validate it. We have
Yeah.
these debates, we discuss these
Yeah.
things, we refer. So it takes a while to
Yeah.
get to, especially those verses that it can be quite tender if we mistranslate. So we don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
Yeah, and there's some verses where you don't have a choice but to translate it mechanically, you know, word for word of what it says. But then there are some places where you have to kind of massage it so that it's going to still deliver the message
Yes.
in the English. And
Yes.
so, you know, it's not easy translating something over into another
No,
language.
it's quite difficult, and especially when you don't know, is that letter a noon? Is it a yod? Is it
Mhm.
whatever? And you could, and we guys, you remember I showed you this earlier. It's not an easy man. This is actually a pretty one. Matthew is
Yeah.
much messier. And
Yeah.
so it is quite difficult at times to see because there's smudges on there. And it's not that easy to translate. So it can be
Yeah.
quite a challenge.
Yeah, there was some of them, I'll say, "Was this guy copying in a bumpy carriage ride or something?"
It's a mess.
Yeah.
We love it because
Mhm.
there's very few people that can translate it and actually even read it. And
Yeah.
so we are grateful that we have the privilege to be able to work with this manuscript. And I think my grandson, oh look, here's my grandson right there. Gotta love him. He even asked, how do we get these manuscripts? Well, these manuscripts are in the Cambridge University Library. And we had a comrade who traveled to the UK, photographed these copies, and pretty much passed them out to the entire world. And gave us a copy, gave me a copy, gave
Mm.
Brian a copy, and quite many people a copy. And so what
Right.
we have is a digital copy. Go ahead, Brian.
Right, and we even went the extra mile and connected up with Cambridge University to make sure that we had direct permission to translate, use it, and to publish it in the way that we're doing it, and to
That's
make it
right.
free. And we are, to my knowledge, as of right now, we're the only ones who have the proper go ahead by the Cambridge University to use this and to distribute it the way it is,
Yes.
and with the images.
We do. We had and I have like 2 minutes left,
Mhm.
guys. I'm sorry. We have very special privileges from Cambridge University to share the images because we wanted to make sure you could see the images.
Mhm.
And so, but guys, be rest assured, we're going to do this again.
Mhm.
Okay. So I do want to encourage you that next week, I will have, you guys have demanded it, but Miranda Brannon from The Way Remnant is coming next week. She's amazing. We love her. And she's going to be talking about religious spirits that are the paintbrushes that the enemy uses to paint a false picture of who Jehovah is. Many have been wounded by this or perverted by these lies. So Miranda Brannon will be on next week. And rest assured, Brian and I will continue to do this. He will come on the week after that. And we are going to continue with some Q&A sessions. And some of these that we will research if we don't have it. I'm sure we have it. I'm going to go through and look at all the questions because we got a lot of questions. And we will be bringing some of these answers to you. Brian, we have
Yep.
about a minute. What do you
Okay.
have to say, my friend?
Well, I just want to encourage everybody to pursue the truth, whatever it may be and wherever it may
Amen.
take you. So help you God. Just
Amen.
pursue the truth no matter what. And I want to finish on a quote from a smart guy. He's
Smart
not
guy,
too
right?
smart. He's not too smart. He's smart. He's not crazy smart or anything like that. His name's Brian Scott Williams, if you ever heard
No.
of him.
Yeah, I've heard
But
of
he
him.
came up with this quote. I'm sure it's somewhere else in part of our videos. It says, "Think for yourself, read for yourself, and question for yourself."
Amen.
And that's it.
With that, Brian, we're out of time.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining, Brian. I'm going to send you back. And guys, we love you. Thank you for being here. And we're going to close out. Okay? Amen. Take care, you guys. If you missed today's show or want to watch it again, or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lamnetwork.tv, where you can find this show and all the other live Lamb show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network. We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lamnetwork.tv website. I'm Janice Baca, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.